The floor came up to meet him hard enough to trigger the mat's impact gel, and he lay there counting ceiling lights, wondering how 900 kilos of muscle, scale, and 4 arms had just lost to something that weighed less than 100. A small hand appeared above him, palm open, waiting. "Draw, sir, or you want another round." To understand how Instructor Ratos ended up flat on his back in front of 43 recruits, you had to go back 3 weeks to a woman who couldn't find a corridor. Bay 7 was color-coded, numbered, lit with directional markers every 50 meters, a layout a hatchling could navigate. Corporal James Reeves arrived late anyway, damp-eyed, mumbling about identical hallways, and took her place in formation between a Gorath the size of a shuttle door and a crystalline Fenrillian who chimed faintly when she moved. Ratos pulled up the readiness charts he'd used for 100 inductions, species ranked by strength, reflex, endurance, and found humans wedged somewhere unremarkable in the middle. Adequate, forgettable. Her hand went up before he'd finished the sentence. "Sir, are those numbers measured here, or measured against our own gravity?" He told her the tests were standardized, fair across species. "Earth runs at 9.8, she said. "This deck's at 6.2, so every rep we've logged since arriving has been at maybe 2/3 load." The grin came back. Might be worth a footnote. It should have ended there. Pride kept his mouth moving instead, something about humans lacking natural armor, about her species being adequate rather than exceptional, even accounting for the difference. And that was the exact sentence that got him a challenge. Hand to hand, no weapons, first pin or submission. He should have declined. He had decades, 4 arms, and a career built on winning this exact kind of match. He said yes, because backing down in front of the whole bay felt worse. What happened between the first stance and the floor took less than 4 minutes, and every instructor on that station would spend the following weeks trying to explain it properly. He didn't fight his strength. She used it. When he tested her with a feint, she wasn't where the feint expected her, already reading the shoulder before the hand moved. When he came in with a real combination, high strike, low sweep, 2 arms committing at once, a sequence that had ended fights for 17 years, she gave ground just long enough to let his own reach carry him past balance, then stepped inside his guard and drove her shoulder into his ribs. The floor left him. He hung there, weightless and absurd, long enough to register that he was losing before the mat answered the question for him. The bay went off like a struck bell, throat sacs pumping, exoskeleton ringing, 43 creatures making 43 different sounds of disbelief. Ratos stared at the lights and felt something more bruised than his spine. He took her hand. "How?" "Earth gravity," she said, like it was the simplest thing in the world. "We've been carrying 60% more weight than this deck gives us since before we could walk. Bring us somewhere lighter, and everything gets faster, stronger, longer. We're not strong despite the planet, sir. We're strong because we never got a choice about it." 3 weeks of frantic research followed. Molecular density scans that made his species' bone structure look loosely packed by comparison. Tendon load figures that read like typographical errors. A recording of a lone civilian covering 40 kilometers on foot without stopping, still sharp enough to pick his footing, because his ancestors used to hunt by simply outlasting whatever they were chasing. By the time Admiral Veyron convened the review, Ratos had built a presentation he privately called his Wall of Shame, and stood to deliver it in front of 6 instructors, 2 xenobiologists, and a very composed Sergeant-to-be Reeves. "Muscle fiber density that outperforms species twice their mass," he said. "Skeletal load tolerance that exceeds Gorath plating in several applications. A trained human can match Gorath's strength at 1/3 of the weight. Tactically speaking, Admiral, I find this alarming." Veron's 4 eyes shifted to Reeves. "Context, Corporal." She stood, unhurried, and put up images of her homeworld, storms that erased coastlines, quakes that reshaped continents, a food chain that had never once agreed to leave her species alone. "Everyone in this room has been treating that as background," she said. "It's not background. It's the reason we're standing here instead of still down there fighting it. We don't have claws, venom, plating, none of the usual advantages. What we have is that we don't quit, and a nervous system built to solve problems that kill you if you're slow about it. Where I come from, sir, that's not a crisis. That's Wednesday. Silence held the room a beat too long. Dr. Felix's compound eyes cycled through 3 colors before he found words for it. Ratos felt the real danger of it settle into his chest. 3 weeks ago, I had decades of confidence in this assessment, Admiral, and I was catastrophically wrong. If I made that error, what happens when hostiles make the same one? They'll see something small and soft. They won't see what's underneath until it's already inside their formation. Veyron rose, decision made, by quelling custom. High-gravity training zones open to every species. A full rewrite of the capability files, Ratos assigned to lead it as penance. Reeves promoted to sergeant on the spot for handing them a truth none of them had bothered to look for. In the corridor afterward, she told him the real lesson wasn't gravity at all. You saw a shape that didn't match your chart and filed it under limitation instead of asking what you'd missed. Most people do that. The only thing that separates you is you actually rewrote the chart. He tested that lesson again within days, watching human recruits training at a fraction of true output, careful not to hurt partners built for gentler worlds, until a broad-shouldered man named Marcus Webb finally stopped holding back against a Velathari opponent and ended the exchange in 4 seconds flat, before the room had finished registering the first move. Months later, Ratos stood at the edge of a launch bay while a joint task force ran final checks before a run against pirates working the outer rim. Gorath muscle, Velathari speed, Krix engineering, and 3 humans threading gear straps with the unbothered calm of people checking whether it might rain later. "They'll have read the reports by now," Reeves said, arriving at his shoulder the way she always did, without warning. "It won't matter," Ratos said. "Reading a thing and standing in front of it have never been the same." She laughed, short and real. "They're about to learn that the expensive way. I'd almost feel sorry for them." The grin flickered back, sharper than he remembered from that first day. Almost. The shuttle doors sealed. Running lights cycled from amber to green, and the deck crew cleared back in a widening circle that had nothing to do with protocol and everything to do with instinct. When the bay was finally empty, Ratos crossed to the gravity console bolted beside the mat and dialed the plating up 1 full increment past standard. He planted his feet, felt the new pull settle into his legs, heavier than anything he'd trained on in 17 years. He did not fall.